the officer involved from the NYPD in the city. And speaking of New York City Councilwoman right now, Joan Ariola joins the program. So your thoughts on former President Trump being in New York for this wake today?
Well, I think it shows that President Trump's or former President Trump's commitment to law enforcement and the NYPD in the city that he was born and did business in continues. And I think that was a wonderful gesture on his part to put all partisan politics aside and go and give condolences. On the other hand, we have former President Obama and President Biden here, who are not tough on crime, do not force Kathy Hochul to roll back our bail reform, criminal justice reform, our onerous discovery policies. And what they do is they come to New York for one thing. They won't close the border. We're overrun with migrants, but they will come to milk the cow. We are nothing but a cash cow to former President Obama and President Biden.
Well, that's a big fundraiser you're alluding to. We're going to talk about that in detail in a minute. That's at Radio City tonight with three presidents or former presidents all on hand, including the current one. You brought up crime. I want to talk about crime for a moment in New York City because it's been in the headlines. We cover the individual and terrible crimes on a case-by-case basis. If you look at the overall statistics, so we can put some of them up there, you see a lot of down arrows, right? Murders down, burglaries down, see that grand larcenies down, robberies are up. Now, the one thing, to put some more context on this, one thing we have covered closely is the transit crime, right? There it is. Transit crime, the subways have been tough. Transit crime is up. But it's interesting that, overall numbers go down. Crime, though, is still a big story when it makes the headlines here in New York. What kind of context would you put it in?
I'd say that public safety is still the #1 issue here in New York City. People do not feel safe here. They don't feel safe taking public transportation. They don't feel safe with their children in schools. And there are a number of bad actors that are out there that are recidivists. That's the problem. The bail reform laws, the criminal justice laws, the onerous discovery laws, the fact that we have a cashless bail system where we have turnstile justice, it's just causing recidivism. The two perps that were involved in the shooting of Officer Diller and the murder of Officer Diller were recidivists, and the shooter was just taken into custody last April and released on a gun charge.
Right, they all have records, right? And they all do it again. So if you're saying one thing we could change, we've heard this before in New York when we have this conversation, you're change the bail laws, the bail reform. That's #1 issue for you?
Yes, it's the #1 issue, and it should be the #1 issue for every legislator here in New York. I know it's the #1 issue that we ask our legislators in the state for when we go and speak with them, my colleagues in the state government, that this is just not working. This is causing a lot of recidivism, and even if it's a small group of recidivists that are out there causing havoc in our city, they are causing havoc in our city. And if they're causing the majority of the crimes, and they're still just going to go back out on the street, they're going to continue to do so.
I wonder what effect it'll have on the presidential race, because, if we look at the overall issues, we have a list of them here that are, people say, oh, this is my #1 issue in the race. Crime's not at the top of the list. Inflation is in this particular poll. And then immigration, which you spoke about a moment ago, but it's high enough there. It's #3, 10%. How much of an effect does the conversation we're having right now have on this year's presidential race, would you say, given your perspective as a local legislator here in New York?
I think it's going to have an enormous impact from the top of the ticket in the presidential race all the way down into the state races. Cost of living, the fact that the immigration policies have not been changed and our city is overrun with migrants, and the fact that we don't feel safe. We've seen an uptick in crimes since the migrants have arrived. And there is, again, a group of them who have created gangs here in our city and are now attacking our police officers and random acts of violence against people on our streets and on our subway platforms.
Well, Joann Ariola, as always, we thank you for your time today. Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.